Hey folks, looks like we've got quite a few people joining us here. Just wanted to welcome you to the 11th episode of the Platform Foundation Academy, where we want to bring you guidance, recommendations, and best practice around our amazing platform features. And so today I'm joined by a couple of our colleagues. We've got Daniel Dreas, Adam Stout, and our presenter, it's going to be Mike Salem, and he's going to be presenting on platform security. I'll give you a brief introduction of myself. My name is Kieran McMorrow. I'm a principal outbound product manager for the Creator Workflows here at ServiceNow, and I'm located outside of Bangor, Maine. So it is a little bit snowy here this time of year. So I figured I would, put some holiday decorations up. I've been in the ServiceNow partner space for about 5+ years, and incredibly excited to be working directly for ServiceNow with the Creator Workflows team. So with that, I will allow the other folks to give themselves a brief introduction. Start off with you, Mike, if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, thanks everybody for joining. My name is Mike Salem. I'll give you a little bit more of an intro once we get into the presentation. Outbound product manager based out of just outside of Denver, Colorado. So much like Kieran, we are well into the swing of winter here in the Rocky Mountains. Also extremely happy to be part of ServiceNow and looking forward to the talk we're going to have here in a little bit. Thanks, Kieran.
Sweet. And just want to say to the attendees, if you guys have any questions, please remember to ask them in the chat, and we will address them at breaks within the session or after the presentation during our Q&A. Daniel, Adam, do you want to give yourselves a brief introduction?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Hey, I'm Daniel. I'm an outbound product manager here, also Creator Workflows with Kieran, based in a bit of it snowy Switzerland here for the Christmas season. But today I'll be just a supporting act for Mike and Kieran. I hope you enjoy the session. Adam?
Good morning and afternoon. This is Adam Stout, outbound product manager as well, Creator Workflows, and here's as a supporting act for Mike.
Cool. Awesome. And with that, we'll get this kicked off. So Mike, if you want to bring up the safe harbor, we'll just get that out of the way and let you do your thing.
Sure. Yeah, that will be the first thing that I cover. So hey, just to kick it off, Kieran, just want to say thanks again. And for anybody that's dialed in or possibly listening to this recording later, just wanted to say good morning, good afternoon, and possibly even good evening, again, depending on where you are or at what time you're listening to this recording. So like I mentioned earlier, my name is Mike Salem. I'm the outbound product manager for platform security here at ServiceNow. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we consider to be the configurable security features within the Now platform. I'll also give you some examples for how to possibly think about platform security within your specific use cases, within your apps, within the workflows that you're operating within with us here at ServiceNow. But Kieran, to your point, before we get too far, let's talk about our forward-looking statement. So the good news is that most, if not all, of what at least I, if not we, talk about today is going to be within the realm of generally available products. But if we get into things that are possibly coming in our soon-to-be San Diego release, or if we, start talking about any sort of general roadmap ideas, I'll make sure to call out, where that line is. And as always, please make sure that any purchasing decisions you make are based only on products that are available today. So now that we've covered that, let's talk about the agenda. Since this session is intentionally designed to be introductory in nature, I'm not going to be going too deep into any one specific area. Security is, an entire profession, if not, technical domain. And so we can get pretty deep pretty quick. But again, this is an introduction to platform security. So by design, I'm not going to get too deep. But across the board, if you look at some of these sections, we'll be talking about why is platform security important in general. And to sort of set the scene for that, we'll look at it from the perspective of a new hire onboarding use case, something all of us have been through that are listening to this call or at least on this meeting right now. And we'll talk about the kinds of things that employees expect from their employers. And then we'll take a step back and we'll look at the various ways that we think and talk about security within the Now platform as a whole, understanding things like performance some of the backend infrastructure, things like that. And then finally, we'll get into the various features of platform security itself from a product perspective, so that you can understand the types of configurable capabilities that you have at your fingertips for your ServiceNow implementations. And so these three sections altogether will put us at just around 20 minutes for this introductory session. And then we can start to open it up for Q&A after that. But before I begin, Kiernan, anybody else, any questions, comments, concerns before we get started?
None for me. Look forward to hearing what you got to teach us today.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so why don't we start with why is platform security important? Well, let's look at it from this perspective. Let's say that you have a star new hire smiling ear to ear because this morning on his first day, he's experiencing firsthand the power of orchestrated digital workflows. And this has been the easiest, friendliest onboarding of his career. And as first impressions go, he's giving the entire process an A+. Again, something that hopefully all of us have been able to experience. But as security-minded admins, as developers, even as risk management professionals, we see ourselves as enablers of this type of business agility that our employees and customers have come to expect from cloud automation. And we also know that behind the scenes, there's a lot of important data being processed within these workflows. If you take a look at the graphic that's kind of moving through this onboarding process that we see on the screen, there's things like names, there's addresses, there's phone numbers. There could very easily also be social security numbers. There could be driver's licenses, like we see the picture just there on the screen. Legal signatures, all kinds of pictures. Another way to describe all of these things could be direct identifiers or indirect identifiers, or in other ways, we can think of these as personal data, sensitive data, and in some cases, even regulated data. And so as more platform use cases within ServiceNow and across sort of the cloud as a whole, process sensitive and regulated data, industry and state regulations are also evolving, and they're growing even more punitive for things like data misuse. And a growing number of risk management professionals are now being mandated to fulfill what we call a legal duty of care. This is a regulated obligation to responsibly manage data. And they have to answer questions like, how do I protect sensitive and regulated data? How do I stay compliant with various regulations? How do I securely open up my instance when I need to, and more? And so the goal of platform security features is to help customers ensure that they're only sharing the right data with the right person or people for the right purpose every time, and to be able to prove it. And so that's because we believe that wherever data exists, that we all have a collective responsibility to be able to identify and protect it, monitor it for use, and if necessary, respond and recover to any sort of policy violation that may ever crop up. And so with platform security in mind, what's already built into the Now platform, when we think of security in general, the infrastructure, the cloud operations, all those kinds of things, and how does that eventually translate into this term that we're defining as platform security specifically? Well, why don't we start with an overview of our overall cloud security and trusted cloud infrastructure. We can talk about some of the things going on behind the scenes that we do to ensure performant, reliable, and secure cloud operations for our customers. And then we can get into some of the more, maybe front end aspects of the applications and features that, our admins, our developers, and our end users are configuring and using every day. So to start, just from a trusted cloud infrastructure perspective, we have 13 data center pairs around the globe, and our multi-instance architecture allows for near zero downtime. It also allows for performance isolation, seamless upgrades, and a lot of customer flexibility for how they want to go about their scheduled maintenance windows. These data center pairs span 5 continents across Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and South America, and all customer production data is stored in both data centers and is kept in sync using real-time database replication. And the last thing I'll mention here is that both of these data centers are active at all times. If you want to think about sort of an active, advanced high availability model. And each of these have the ability to support the combined production load of the pair. So from a support perspective, our technical support is provided to all customers at no additional cost and available 24/7, 365, including holidays, which we're running up pretty close to as we speak. Our global team employs a direct to expert model so that our customers get the correct resource each time and every time, really. And critical cases are managed using a follow the sun model. Any sort of, maybe lower priority cases can also be elevated at the customer's request as well. We have our omni-channel engagement model that's also available 24/7, 365 through things like our Now Support mobile app. We have our Now Support web portal. We have our global support hotline and also our virtual agent, which I hope everybody listening to this has had a chance to experience because it's pretty cool. And finally, so our cloud data centers and operations, they've also received global certifications and accreditations. You can see down there at the bottom of the screen, every year ServiceNow is rigorously audited and audited by independent third-party companies and government bodies to prove that we comply with various global and regional standards. So these are all, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just to kind of jump in, just to mention the support. I think for anybody that has had a midnight go live that did not go as expected, ServiceNow support is always there. Gratefully so, because we definitely know that they're always going to be there when we need them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, the idea of security and reliability and redundancy and performance, it can span such a broad spectrum. And the idea that we have the support model in place is such a huge piece of that as well. So that's a great point. Thank you for
Exactly.
So that previous slide, that's kind of, cloud security, cloud operations, our trusted global infrastructure, and sort of some stats on the makeup of how we actually deliver the service to customers. And so if we look at all the kinds of things that this infrastructure supports, moving into the visual that we're seeing on the screen here, our cloud also scales to meet the needs of the largest global 2000, if you want to think about it in that way, and aims to always be operational for them, just like to your point, Kiernan, 24/7, 365, regardless of when your go live might be or what day it might fall on. And within this infrastructure, we have tens of thousands of customer instances operating globally within our various data center regions. And each of these customer instances leverages our multi-instance architecture. This allows them to perform an aggregate of tens of billions of full page transactions every month, if you want to think about scale, that global planetary scale in that way.
It's really staggering, really, when you look at the numbers.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, it really is planetary scale, sort of as we, as the enterprise and the move to cloud is sort of grown up over time. And so these customers that are, within our infrastructure having their own customer instances, they're using our configuration management database, also known as CMDB for short, as their single system of record. They've been able to scale these CMDBs to manage tens of millions of configuration items. And so again, between this slide, between the one before it that was showing the trusted infrastructure, all of this really important stuff are the kinds of things that I mentioned earlier that are all going on behind the scenes when we have customers using ServiceNow to ensure things like performance, reliability, scalability, security, et cetera. But I also mentioned that I wanted to get into sort of what in my mind feels more like some of the front end kind of stuff, the customer specific configurations, their specific use cases, their specific applications, and talk about when and how platform security comes into play with those. So I want to shift gears a little bit from sort of the trusted infrastructure and delivery side of things into the workflows and the applications and the things we offer for customers for their specific requirements. And really start to think about whether it's an admin or a citizen dev or a pro level dev or even security professionals that are responsible for managing a ServiceNow instance. what are the things that they can start to really see and configure and touch within their own instances that they're using day to day. So to do that, let's think about these different workflows that we have. If you look up at the top, we have IT workflows, employee workflows, customer workflows, and even creator down there at the end. I think my slide just had a little bit of a delay. And so all of these, oh, sorry, was there a question?
No, I said that's great.
Yeah, and so within these 4 workflows, all of them have their own catalog of applications. We have all of these industry solutions that span across the board. And so when we think about platform security, sort of as that defined term and, understanding where it fits within the overall ServiceNow ecosystem, platform security is actually down here. It's inside of the Now platform layer, hence the word platform in platform security. And so this includes, I mentioned earlier in our presentation, this includes all of the configurable security features that are actually part of the Now platform, all of the things that the admins and developers and security professionals can actually set up for their specific customer requirements. And so this runs, across the board to support any workflow or any application that our customers might be using with ServiceNow. So when you think about platform security, the way it can be, a little bit different at times is that it's not a single app. It's not like just our security operations application, although that application is very important in its own right. And it's not necessarily our infrastructure related to the security capabilities that we talked about a second ago, or sort of the certifications or accreditations that come with those. When we think about platform security, it's really the features within the platform layer that our ServiceNow admins and developers can actually get their hands on. They can configure, they can build in extra levels of if you want to think about it, like trust and compliance and governance into their instances for their specific use cases based on the requirements that they have that are, maybe in some ways custom to them, whether they have some sort of internal security policy that's specific to their organization that they have to follow, or maybe based on the industry that they're in or the part of the world that they're in. There's specific things that they have to make sure that they're adhering to. And so platform security are these extra features within the platform that allow them to tailor their instances, in some of these different ways to help them meet those requirements that they have, personally for them. And so as our customers' use of our platform continues to grow in this area across things like industry verticals, I mentioned industries a second ago. You can see things like financial services, healthcare, government, also growing into various enterprise functions, across HR, customer support, even healthcare, for example. So does the value that our customers see in how we help them to manage increasingly sensitive and regulated data across their various use cases. If you think back to our employee onboarding example from earlier, ServiceNow was supporting those direct identifiers, like I mentioned, name and address, indirect identifiers like age, phone number, citizenship, and all kinds of other, just in general, sensitive information, things like employment and education history. Maybe there's financial information that in some ways can be related to things like background checks and just that general sort of onboarding and screening process, or even medical information within some of these HR use cases and others.
Yeah, Mike, I was going to just chime in there. During the whole pandemic, ServiceNow has kind of played a really foundational role in some of the early testing procedures that were going on. I know that LA County spun up a testing application that ServiceNow helped to build out really quickly, and that kind of had to contain PII, which was something that I think a lot of people are not necessarily comfortable with, but because of the platform features, PII completely secure allowed people to kind of put in a lot of personal information and register for that testing early on in the pandemic. So there definitely are a lot of use cases specifically around healthcare that are definitely growing these days.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I always come back to, our success, is our customer success. And so thinking about the types of cloud capabilities that we're able to bring to our customers across our workflows, our automation, our orchestrations, all those kinds of things, and bringing it into, the current environment with the pandemic and vaccine management and all those kinds of things, has been really great to see, how successful our customers have been able to be there. So that's a great point, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thanks again.
Yeah. So, we've been talking about it, all the different ways that we support our customers today. The types of data that they're currently and eventually going to want to store and process with us is growing just based on the sheer number of use cases that customers are starting to think about ServiceNow, to build with us, just like you mentioned with, some of those vaccine management applications as well. And that's only going to continue to grow as well. As the number of use cases grow, so does the variety and sort of the classification of data that we're going to be helping customers manage and support them in. And so with all of this in mind, what I really wanted to get to was, what are the various features of platform security specifically? We know that it's part of the Now platform in general. We know that there's capabilities that can be used for any workflow or any application. But how do we actually know, which ones are available to us, or maybe how to use them, or what I should expect from them? And so really this comes back to, delivering the right data to the right person or people at the right time, every time, and being able to prove that as well. So from a product perspective, platform security is currently grouped into these 5 buckets. We have data protection, data management, identity and authentication, security monitoring, and our security admin experience. And these 5 buckets are available for use with all of our workflows, with all of our applications, embedded into that Now platform layer. As I'm denoting, that's what I'm showing there at the bottom with those different 2 bars there. So when we think about the platform security sort of domain, these 5 different buckets, there's over 64 features and growing. And with our San Diego release right around the corner, that number is only going to continue to grow. And I'm not going to go into every single feature within this introductory session, but I would like to look at maybe 1 or 2, per column, just to understand a little bit more about the types of capabilities that each one of these columns provides. And then maybe in future sessions, based on different, interest or any feedback or follow-ups that we get, we can start to drill down much deeper into any specific area or any individual feature. So let's start with data protection. And this is this is kind of an interesting one because, our customers' data, it's already safe, it's already secure, while it's stored within our cloud-based infrastructure, that trusted infrastructure that we talked about earlier with our certifications and our accreditations, and the way that we protect it and manage the service that we provide our customers. But also, if you think about those different use cases, we talked about pandemic, we have different industries, different parts of the world, based on the type of data that our customers might want to be processing with us, they might want extra levels of, you can think about it like protection or governance or assurances in some way, for the data that they're classifying in different ways, or the types of data that it is. And that extra level can come in the form of understanding how we manage encryption keys. How are we following the NIST-based guidelines and providing things like FIPS 140-2 level 3, hardware security modules behind the scenes. How are we really adhering to those government and regulatory body, regulations for how we need to be, good stewards of our customers' data and keys and all those kinds of things. They might just also want to understand various types of encryption that we do offer, based on encryption at rest, encryption at use, role-based access, who can see what, all these kinds of things. And so just as as an example, I mentioned, providing a couple sort of ways to think about how to mix and match some of these features based on different use cases that customers might have. Let's say you have, some sort of externally facing application. One of our customers is helping their customers. And maybe, your customer data, you want to treat somewhat differently than internal types of data that's just specific to your own company internally. You might want to employ a feature like what I'm highlighting here, which is column level encryption enterprise, to ensure that specific customer related fields have some extra levels of protection in certain ways, while also being able to use those fields in the automation required to run your business, to make it accessible for things like flows and orchestration, for search, reporting, for filters, for all the things that we want out of a ServiceNow app. while also being able to use, encrypted data in all of those processes as well. And so, a little bit more specific example, maybe someone's birth date, I don't know, is used to, to trigger some additional automated business logic. And so, Kieran, to your point earlier, we'd want to be able to protect that PII in an appropriate way, while also making that field available for any follow-on and necessary automation as well. And so with that, that one feature that I'm highlighting there on the screen, CLE Enterprise for short, because I know it's a pretty long name, we can apply role-based access to this kind of stuff, to this data, so that we're helping to ensure that only the right ServiceNow users, the people that have been specifically granted the right privileges, have access to see any of this type of encrypted data in a decrypted format. So, we hear a lot of, customers and just in the industry in general talk about RBAC or role-based, access controls. This is an example of applying that RBAC, philosophy towards, the encryption options that you have, how you can manage and manage key operations, but also who within your organization can see data in either an encrypted or decrypted format.
Yeah, and I think HR probably has a large component of that role-based access with the column level encryption, because there are particular data that you don't have anybody else in the org besides your HR folks working on. If I'm not mistaken.
You're exactly right. Yep. Any of those easily more sensitive areas, customers, as far as account success, sort of mixing and matching some of these platform security features with the other use cases and applications that they're already working on with us.
Exactly.
And so if we move to this, the second column, we have data management. And when we think about data management, you can think about it in terms of working in tandem with that data protection column. I mean, really, it's all about how you classify, how you access, in some cases, how you separate data, in addition to whether or not that data, might need to be encrypted or managed in some other way like that. And so, Kieran, to your point earlier, you can see things in this column like roles and ACLs. You can even see domain separation and even data classification, which is the one that I wanted to highlight for this column. This is one that I have a pretty strong interest in, because I believe that, organizations that I've seen that have adopted really strong data classification, methods or sort of, muscles, they've built that into their orgs. That also really lends itself well to understanding what types of data that they have, how it might need to be treated, who might be able should be able to access it, Kieran, to your HR example above, or prior rather. And then also, does it need to be encrypted or not? So, using these data management capabilities, classifying your data in the right ways, just opens up your instance and provides so much visibility to your organization for, the kinds of data that you're managing, that you're using us to process, and then, what you should be doing with it after the fact from there. And in the third column, we have identity and authentication. And, if this is a newer area to you, it's really all about, are you who you say you are? And, what should you be able to do once we've kind of believed you that you've logged in and you are who you say you are. And so just like data management works in tandem with data protection, the identity and auth also works very closely in tandem with roles and ACLs. So maybe your company has, a security policy in place that requires multi-factor authentication for all of your enterprise applications. That's a lot of companies are moving in that, towards that method, just to build in those extra levels of governance and security for who's accessing their applications. And so with ServiceNow, one example, just to think about, different use cases that you could apply today, your admin could configure this biometric authentication feature that we have for use within MFA. If you're logging into the Now mobile app, you could use your thumbprint for your mobile device, and that could be that extra check to prove you are who you say you are, so that you can securely log in on mobile to ServiceNow. In addition to biometric auth, there's also, this concept of maybe based on things like what role you belong to, what groups you're in, maybe what IP address you're coming from. Your admin can also configure adaptive authentication. So these are authentication policies that can differ or be enforced in different ways based on those variables that I mentioned above. So really providing sort of dynamic extra checks and balances here based on who you are, where you might be, and all those kinds of things. So, two different examples that are both pretty cool from an identity and auth perspective.
I know personally that, we've all kind of reached the end of being able to remember passwords. So having these biometric and MFA abilities really helps out to kind of streamline the process, because a lot of the time, how many times a day do you have to authenticate? And having the ability to use your thumbprint, use your face, use other kind of methods to kind of not have to continually remember all these different priorities and methods that you have to use. So it definitely is a boon, I think.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much about these biometric sort of enhancements that we're coming out with and that we have, at our fingertips now that go above and beyond even something like a numerical code that might get sent to your cell phone or to your email or something like that. With something like a thumbprint, I mean, that's, you are who you are, and it's proving, something that's very personal to you. Whereas some of these other ways, that we see out there in the world today also, seem like they're great. But some of those other things can still be, copied and pasted and all that kind of stuff. So the biometric, capability that we're providing customers is that extra level of security that they can build in if they'd like to. So for number 4, you can see here we have security monitoring. And so, this primarily is helping very strongly with that whole, how do we help prove that we're, providing the right data to the right people at the right time, every time. And so, within that platform security goal that I mentioned earlier. And so this is really primarily about, logs and notifications, who logged in, from where, from what device, what do they access, and more. And we want to help customers be proactive in this area. There's certain things, within, certain like global regulations like GDPR, for example, where you have a certain amount of time that you need to report things, if you're monitoring logs and you notice, certain behavior within your organization. And so we want to help customers be proactive there. We want to make it easier for them, to stay compliant, to do the things that they need to do without always, maybe feeling like they're being reactive or not sure where they need to go to find the information that they have at hand. And in addition to, proactive information with this type of security monitoring, we also want to support the customer set of ours that wants this data, but also wants it in security applications that maybe are outside of ServiceNow. We have certain customers that are like, hey, we're using other things. We're using, Splunk, or we're using other types of security information and event management systems. And we like this data. We need this data, but we need it also, we need to be able to integrate it. We need to stream it. We need to put it in other places. And we want to make sure that customers understand that this is their data. They have access to it. And if they want to integrate it, in other ways, they're completely capable to do so. And finally, I'll end sort of these 5 sections with the security admin experience. And this is focused mainly right now on our instance security center, or ISC for short. And if you haven't checked this out yet, it's pretty great. It's really the single place within a ServiceNow instance that you can monitor for most of the things that are in all these other columns, but also other stuff too, that even relate, even more heavily towards some of that backend, trusted infrastructure that I mentioned as well. And so to sort of talk about the ISC, I'll actually just flip to an instance so we can take a look at it. And so let's say you have a ServiceNow instance up and running. Maybe you have several if you're a larger or maybe a more complex implementation of ServiceNow. And let's also say that you've gone through the hardening guide. You've implemented certain recommended security protocols, and for now everything is running smoothly. But for many of our ServiceNow admins and customers, we all know that things can change pretty quickly as well. New threats can be discovered all the time when it comes to security. I feel like there's stuff in the news pretty frequently. And if you want a way to assess the security health of your instances at any given time, this is really the one-stop shop that you can rely on. So within the ISC, you can look at the current security state of your instance. You can use real-time metrics, and I'll just point you to sort of a couple that are popping up on the screen here right now. So at the top, there's security alerts. There's other helpful information. There's things that you can click into. We see that notification bell at the top there. below the banner itself, that security banner, you'll also see a number of occurrences for several different types of security events that can be popping up. So for this instance, the one that I'm logged into here, the one that we're looking at on the screen, as of today, there's been 54 exports. There's been 14 failed logins. Maybe that biometric that we talked about earlier would help with that, Kieran. There's been 18 external logins. We want to make sure that we're using that security monitoring to understand, who externally to ServiceNow are we giving the right permissions and privileges to be able to log in. We can see 7 trusted incoming emails, 16 quarantine files, and 28 known viruses identified. So clicking into any of these areas will allow you to see and review historical trends and also look at any specific events that you might want to drill into a little bit more. And so if you've ever wondered sort of how your instance is doing in terms of security overall, the ISC is constantly monitoring your security settings and assigning you a daily score. And so this daily compliance score that I'm highlighting here is based on how compliant your current instance settings are with the recommended guidelines that we provide within the instance hardening guide. And the instance hardening guide and these guidelines, I mean, they really run the gamut, and it's pretty comprehensive in terms of the recommendations that we give. So if we have, security minded admins, if we have, security professionals, if we have people that really sort of toe that line between an interest in ServiceNow, application development and configuration, and also understanding the security requirements that are out there and sort of what they should and need to be abiding by. This is really a great place for, those two different sides of the coin to really come together and use their configuration and their IT skills, to satisfy security requirements and security knowledge, and to really dig deeper there as well. So if you look at the score that I have on the screen here, a 90 or above means that the instance is compliant with most, if not all, critical security controls. A score of 50 or below means that we're seeing a pretty low level of compliance. And since the instance that I'm logged into right here, since we're seeing an 83, that means that it's mostly compliant, but there's also probably a pretty good chance that there's some things that could be strengthened as well. So the next, question I would have is, great, I see this 83. How do I know what do I need to improve, and where do I go to find it, and all those kinds of things?
That was my next question.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I always, would point people to next is, a couple different areas. Specifically, the notifications that are up there on the top of the screen, and also that hardening section there in the middle. The notifications are going to keep you informed about, specific security events that are happening either now or maybe, recently in the past. And that hardening section helps you review how those current security settings that you have stack up against those recommended instance settings that we provide for you. And so that hardening section is really where you can go to help find and fix non-compliant settings as well. And so after you've reviewed both of these, after you've put your admin plus, security minded hat on and gone through this and updated things, the way that you would need to for your specific instance, one of the last things you can do is also run the auditor. So the auditor performs really a full body assessment of your instance health that analyzes the system configuration, all the updates that you just made. And this was an overview of the ISC. We have notifications, we have these events and the trends and the specific areas that we can drill into, the compliance score, the hardening section, this auditor that'll run the full scan. And there's so much more to the ISC as well. But since this is an introductory session, I'm trying to be cognizant of giving the broad sort of landscape of platform security, and not necessarily going too deep into any one area. So as far as the ISC concerned, I'll pause it there for now. But if we have any follow-ups or questions that want to get deeper into the ISC, we can always do that in follow-up sessions as well.
We definitely could do a whole nother Platform Academy session just on the ISC alone. So
Absolutely.
I'd have to have you back in the new year.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I'll just take us back briefly towards the end here, towards these 5 platform security domains. And, just to sort of reiterate how we think about this within the overall ServiceNow, service that we have, the delivery that we provide within that trusted cloud infrastructure. These represent the configurable customer facing admin, citizen developer, security professional features that are part of the Now platform. These are the things that you can see and configure and use within your ServiceNow implementations across these 5 areas: data protection, data management, identity and auth, security monitoring, and that security admin experience. And I mentioned, there's over 64 features total. I put just a few, sort of quick examples up on the screen here. But Kieran, to your point, these features are growing with every release, and we could have, entire individual sessions on a single column or maybe even a single feature, depending on which feature it is, like the ISC, for example. And an important thing to remember that, that I personally, talk with customers about and talk with our internal teams about as well, is that all of these features should be treated, should be, designed and architected and looked at within your ServiceNow implementations, just like you'd be thinking about other parts of your apps or how you're configuring, the Now platform, like how many tables you might need, how are we extending those tables, how are we configuring them, what columns are we adding, or what kinds of orchestration do we need, or what integrations are we building. Everything you're seeing here on the screen, is an integral part of the process, because it just means that we're giving, we're allowing for customers to build the types of applications, to deliver on the types of workflows and processes that they need to run their business. But we're also giving them all the tools so that they know that they've configured those extra levels, of trust, of security, of however you want to think about it, based on the requirements that are custom and specific to them, for their own internal security policies, for the industries that they're in, for the parts of the world that they're in. And so I look at this as, just as much of, a factor of an implementation as, those tables or those orchestrations or anything else. So Kieran, I'll end it here. I'd like to tell the people that are listening or that have dialed in that if they'd like to learn more, we have plenty of links and content that we can put on the Platform Academy page. There's ways that they can follow up. And I just want to say thanks. Cool. Thanks to everybody for, Kieran, for you for hosting, for the people that have dialed in or might be listening later, for giving me some of your time. I hope it was educational and enjoyable to learn about the various aspects of platform security and how it's related to, but in some ways also slightly different from some of those other more behind the scenes, trusted cloud infrastructure components. And so I hope to be able to follow up with anybody that has questions. And back to you.
Definitely want to thank you for your presentation, Mike. And I'll just say, now we're going to open up the floor to any questions.
Yeah, so, Kieran, just to touch on that really quick, security is such a broad topic, and depending on who you're talking to, what their background is, what their experience is, what their interests are, it can really run the gamut. And, it's especially a large part of what we're bringing to customers at ServiceNow, because we have so many different facets of it. We have our SecOps applications. We have all of the trusted cloud infrastructure and the certifications and accreditations that we've received in order to securely provide service around the world. And we also have, plenty of our own internal teams. I mean, we have our Tiger team that's monitoring security events. We have our security engineering team that's ensuring proper separation of duties for our key management and how we provide that service for customers. We have our Office of the CISO, that's supporting, really everybody, both customers and internally at ServiceNow. And then we also have, our platform security group. And so just making that distinction that these are platform level features that our customers are welcome to use across their applications and workflows with us.
Awesome. And, I want to thank everybody for contributing to the poll. We do run one every Academy session. And, the feedback helps us to determine, if this was valuable to you, if you're going to return and if you'd recommend it. And it's definitely helpful to us and helpful to the rest of the community. So it looks like we've got a few answers in here. I'm going to end that real quick. And here we go. Let's share these results. So overall, how would we rate the Academy session? Looks like very good, excellent. That's always what we like to hear. If it was too long, too short, about right. That's what we want to hear as well. And will you attend again? That is the number one. We always want to have people coming back because we want to try to provide meaningful content to folks in the infrastructure. So this was definitely helpful to me to understand a lot of kind of these basic understandings of platform security. And would you recommend it? Definitely. That's what we want. So thanks again, guys. As with prior Platform Academy sessions, we are going to be posting this video to YouTube, and any questions that were asked will be available on the Platform Academy session page on the community. So we will provide any relevant links that Mike maybe has to share with us. But I want to thank everybody for joining today's session. If there are no further questions, I will let everybody know, as a reminder, we are taking a holiday break after today, but we will look forward to sharing more Now content with you in the new year. So once again, Mike, I wanted to thank you for your time and thank you for joining us for the Platform Academy session today. So hope everybody has a wonderful holiday, and don't enjoy yourselves too much, but yeah, look forward to seeing you all in the new year.
Thanks, Kieran. Thanks all.
Appreciate it.